It's okay to fail as long as you tried, because you're in a much better position.
What separates the winners from the losers?
Investing. So winners are the ones who are investing in themselves, investing in their business, investing in mentorship. The losers have a scarcity mindset. They're half in, half out all times. When someone invests, that's when they become a winner automatically.
Why do you see people struggle with discipline and consistency? What are the root causes?
There's like an underlying fear when people can't stay consistent and don't have discipline, or it's something that they don't really enjoy. You're gonna get bored because you're not gonna see results straight away.
Do you see any common traits amongst high performers?
First, it's mindset, really being visionaries and really seeing that potential of what they're doing and having a long-term focus. So people, I would say, who are really high performers see 5 years, 10 years down the line. They're not just looking this year and next year.
How do you teach or tell people to deal with failure?
The biggest thing that actually stops them from trying is
Mira, thanks for hopping on Truth Central.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Indeed.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so like the core of it is about people's truth, or how did you come up with that name?
The core of it is to discuss the truth, realities in the way that things are. You know, we consume a lot of media and information. There's more information online that's disinformation and non-factual than there is factual. So I wanted to set up a platform where everything discussed here is as they are, raw, in a truthful way.
Ah, cool. Yeah, I mean, I thought, initially I thought it would be something around like entrepreneurship, because from what I like see in your audience, in your guests, most of them are entrepreneurs. But it's cool that like really they could be entrepreneurs, but the core of it is about people's truths.
Yeah, and also because didn't want the format of the conversations to be confined specifically to entrepreneurship, business, to get real, talk about life experiences, stories.
Oh, that sounds so much more fun.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And on that note,
yeah,
Mira, you are a business and mindset coach, a life coach.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit about what exactly that means?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a certified life coach. So I did a training program and I got my like international coaching certifications to basically help people move forward. So the main question people ask me is, what's the difference between life coaching and therapy? So life coaching is focused on the present and future focused. So it's all about action steps, goals. It's very focused on you becoming your 2.0 self, let's say. Therapy is a lot more focused on healing the past, healing any traumas or emotional issues, and also healing any mental illnesses. So therapy is more focused on understanding like the why. Why do I have these patterns? Why do I behave in certain ways in relationships? Where coaching is more like, okay, we identify the pattern and then we say, what can you do about it? How can you change it? So it's very, action-oriented, goal-oriented.
Okay, so it's... But you don't always need to have an issue or a problem to start life coaching, right? It doesn't have to be a specific pattern that you look at and address and say you need to fix. There's a lot of people, high-performing CEOs or athletes that have life coaches.
Yeah, 100%. So you just go for a coach when you're trying to get better at something. So the easy way to think of it is getting a coach at the gym. That's kind of a traditional type of coach people get. Why do you do that? To make you go to the gym, first of all, and then to get stronger and to get more fit. So it's when you're trying to achieve something, when you're trying to level up. So you come to a coach when you're trying to level up in your life or in your business or in your, sport that you do. So I would say anyone who's trying to level up or trying to grow in their life, it's important to look into coaching. Especially now, the coaching market is really booming. So there are so many coaches out there, and that just proves that there is the demand for coaches right now.
And can you give examples of how you help people improve?
Yeah, so right now I'm really focused on helping people start or grow a business. So I really focus on freelancers and solopreneurs. And the reason I decided to help this market specifically is because I noticed there's such a gap. So there is kind of support for someone who's looking to, have a tech startup or to have a startup that, requires investors and they join an incubator or things like this. But I noticed there's no support for that person who's launching something on their own. So for example, me as a coach. yes, I'm coaching, but I'm also launching a business. So a lot of the people I work with now are solopreneurs who are really looking to grow their business, and they're experts in their field. So let's say they're graphic designers or real estate agents. They're experts in their field, but they're not entrepreneurs. They don't know how to sell, and they don't have that mindset of an entrepreneur. So I find what happens is they undercharge, they overwork, and they really don't have any strategies or systems in place to scale and grow their business.
So they have the skill set of a solopreneur or freelancer in their field, but they don't have the business mindset.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't have the entrepreneur skills, like how to sell, how to confidently, say your price. Those kind of things are really what we help with, so that they really start seeing themselves as business owners and entrepreneurs, and not just, oh, I do this thing as on the side, or it's my side hustle.
Awesome. And are there any daily habits, routines that you would advise people who are starting out something new to abide by?
Yeah, so as soon as I start working with someone, we first identify any limiting belief they have. So that's kind of a thought you have which you believe to be true, and it's limiting you from growing. And they come out quite quickly when you're working with a coach. And as soon as we catch them, we then rewire them. So just to give you an example, a limiting belief could be, oh, I'm not an entrepreneur. It's that simple, I do this on the side, but I'm not an entrepreneur. That could be the root limiting belief. So once we catch that, we have to rewire it. So then every single morning, their homework would be to say, I am an entrepreneur. And it's honestly that simple. You just have to change it. And eventually, your brain will start believing that new belief that you've now put into your mind. So they're called affirmations.
Okay. And to be honest, limiting beliefs are quite common in newly aspiring entrepreneurs. When people get into business for the first time, obviously, there's the flip side where you think you can achieve everything, that you can go against all the odds, otherwise you wouldn't become an entrepreneur in the first place. But prior to achieving something and having success or an achievement behind you, can always be this doubt whether or not you're cut out for this or you have the capacity to achieve this. Yeah. And I myself at some point even had that. I was shifting from this perspective of I'm amazing at X, Y, Z, but then I'm only a year in business. I haven't necessarily achieved something big to know that I have such capacity to execute or achieve something. So I guess for aspiring entrepreneurs, it would be helpful to have someone guide you through those brief, or let's say through those moments of limiting belief.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is mindset, to whether, in between someone succeeding or not succeeding, there's a lot of people with capacity and intellect, but the differentiating factor can be mindset.
100%. Yeah, I would say the number one thing that separates a winner from a loser in entrepreneurship is mindset. And ultimately, it's your mindset that will make you show up every day, no matter what, your reality looks like right now. It's your mindset and belief that you can do and you can achieve this milestone and the next milestone that will get you anywhere. And I truly believe anyone is capable of entrepreneurship if they have the right mindset.
What's the biggest mistake people make when trying to achieve their dreams?
Oh, yeah. The biggest mistake people make when they're trying to achieve their dreams is not going through with it. So, for example, you might, I hear this a lot from clients, is that they start with an idea and they have so many ideas, but they don't pursue any of them. So I don't know, you might see this within friends or people that these, a lot of people always have an idea and always have a business idea and they get excited about it for a month and then they drop it. So the biggest mistake people make is not being consistent in moving forward with their idea.
And I guess also not executing, right?
Yeah.
If they have so many ideas and they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. So people, love to talk about their idea and then they just kind of let it drop because, fear comes in, they're scared to fail. So it's just easier to talk about it because you get that little bit of satisfaction oh, it's my idea. I got some, justification socially from it. That's enough for now. And then they drop it.
Yeah, I read somewhere that if you have an idea that you want to pursue, that it may not necessarily be a good idea to consistently talk about it because the dopamine hit or the feeling that you get when talking about it can substitute or let's say you get the dopamine just by talking about it, that gives you a false sense of achievement.
Yeah, I
that
heard
you've
that
achieved
too.
it.
I heard that too recently, actually. And yeah, I mean, I would say there's, you know what I found actually from my clients, like anyone who's actually started a business, like they got already some work, they're the most scared to talk about their business. And they're the ones that I push to tell everyone what you're doing, your friends, your family, everyone should be supporting you, everyone should be helping you grow. And actually, they're the ones who are scared because they feel like imposters, although they've started a business, versus people so freely talking about this idea that they have and haven't done anything about it. For some reason, there's no fear there because they have nothing to lose. Does that make sense?
Can you, just for those that don't know, can you explain what imposters mean, or the imposter syndrome?
Yeah. So imposter syndrome is actually a universal feeling that we all feel. And it basically just means like feeling like a fraud. I don't know if you've ever had an experience where you were doing something new and you felt like a complete fraud.
I don't think fraud would be the adjective I would use to describe the sensation that I
dramatic.
felt. Yeah. I would say, circling back on my experience when I first got into business and the real world, and I would see people who had a lot more experience than me. I would be having meetings with 50-year-olds, 40-year-olds. I'd be competing against 50-year-olds, 40-year-olds. So there would be these brief moments in time where you obviously cannot be as good as someone who has 10, 20, 30 years of experience, like any skill, right? If you learn to start playing football in year one, you're not going to be better than someone who's played football for 10 years, or if you're learning violin. But in that instance, I guess I had question marks, and I felt I was maybe not good enough, not necessarily a fraud. But then you can loop that back into how.
Yeah, exactly. So basically that feeling of, you're at the table with all these people who are a lot more experienced than you. You kind of feel like, why am I here? I'm an imposter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't deserve to be at this table. So it's a universal feeling that we have. And actually even Albert Einstein felt like he didn't deserve as much credit as he was getting for his work, and he felt like an imposter. So that just shows that all of us have this feeling. So it's actually a normal feeling to have. And it's natural when you're trying something new, because of course you don't have that much experience. Of course you're new, but it doesn't mean that you're not qualified or you're not meant to be there.
Yeah, and I also read something that was really interesting a while ago, that it said something like, for successful people to achieve something and succeed, they always internally have to pretend to be someone they're not. Now, the explanation of this is not to be pretending to be someone else, but pretending to be the future version of you. Mm-hmm. So again, if it's sports and you're playing a World Cup final, you need to pretend as if you're a World Cup final winner, even though you're not. Or if you're an entrepreneur and you're in your first year of business and you haven't necessarily achieved anything significant, you need to, in your mind, pretend and behave and conduct meetings in a manner in which you are an entrepreneur who has succeeded X, Y, Z. And I found that a very interesting concept, to behave not as the version of you today, but as the version of you tomorrow.
100%. And actually, I hear about this a lot, and I truly, truly believe in it. And that's actually what I work with all my clients on, and even with myself. So when I was first starting life coaching, living in New York, and I was still working full time, and I would, wake up early to do coaching, and after work, I'd do some coaching. So I was really invested in it, but I still wasn't, seeing real results or real rewards. And I fully felt like an imposter. And I was looking at all these, global life coaches and thinking like, how can I compete? Like, there's already so many out there. And so I learned about, this strategy, and ultimately what it is, you're tricking your mind. So it's actually like a science. It's actually science. You're tricking your mind to believe that that's true. And by doing that, your mind then looks for opportunities to make it true. So in a sense, it's kind of like manifestation, where you're basically teaching your mind, like, this is who I am. I am a life coach. I have this many clients a day. I make this much money. I have this many followers. This is my growth. And by telling yourself that every day and acting like that, your brain has no choice but to pave the path for you to get there.
Because your brain, again, I'm not a expert in this specifically, so I can't say it's a fact, but apparently the brain cannot necessarily tell the difference between imagination or what you tell yourself is true versus what is actually true. Right?
So one way to think about it is like, have you ever had like a dream where you're like falling off a cliff and then like you wake up and you physically feel the symptoms of fear?
Yeah.
Like your heart is beating.
More often than I would like.
Yeah, exactly. So that's proof that your brain doesn't know if it's real or not. It just believes that what vision you've had. So by doing that, by taking advantage of that, basically, and visualizing your future self, yourself as, this accomplished entrepreneur, this accomplished person, you're teaching your mind that this is true. And by repeating that, it then believes this is true and it helps you get there.
I want to talk about failure.
Okay.
Failure is something that we have as a society looked down upon previously. Now we're learning to start celebrating failures a little bit more because we're learning that failures in many cases are a prerequisite to success, and it's a necessary stepping stone. How do you teach or tell people to deal with failure?
Well, I would say it actually starts from fear of failure. So because I kind of work with like the solopreneurs and freelancers in the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey, the biggest thing that actually stops them from trying is being scared to fail. And what will people think? And if I put myself out there and I fail? So we already start off with the point that, it's better to try and fail than to not try at all and be in the same spot next year as you were today. So we already kind of combat this fear of failing, that it's okay to fail as long as you tried, because you're in a much better position.
So a lot of the approach is shifting the perspective around failure, that it's worse to have regret not having tried than to try something and either realize it wasn't good, it wasn't something for you, or to fail, because out of every failure there are learnings that come from it.
Yeah, exactly. And then basically every failure is just an opportunity in another direction, right? So one way, one theory, I guess, is we have either a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. So a fixed mindset is believing that, a failure is a representation of us. It means that, we don't believe we can grow. We believe we're stuck with the same skills that we've always had. So if you have a fixed mindset, you're kind of stuck in this box. But then if you have a growth mindset, you believe you can learn new things, you can grow, that failure is actually an opportunity. So it's important to always remember that you need to have a growth mindset whenever you're doing something new, whenever in your day-to-day life. A growth mindset is really what will help you achieve things, versus a fixed mindset will keep you in the same spot year over year.
100%. And I mean, I can very comfortably say from my personal life experience, I have definitely learned more in life from my failures than my successes. My failures have made me a better person or more competent person in every aspect of life, whether that's work-related, personal.
Can you give us an example of a failure that taught you something?
The first thing that comes to mind that I wouldn't necessarily define as a failure was a project that I was working on together with my business partners to launch a new company that I personally was really, really, really passionate about. I spent a year and a half developing that company, working day and night on it. I mean, it didn't feel like work. I was really passionate about it. And at the end of the year and a half, there were a few factors that were outside our control that led to us putting this project on ice. And in my head, I could perhaps define it as a failure, because in my mind, we were going to launch this company that was going to be super successful, that was going to become a well-known brand, generating great revenue and pushing this incredible mission and helping consumers and people along the journey. And that didn't take place. I hope one day it will. Okay, it's on ice, so I don't define it as a failure. But what I learned from that 1.5 year period that didn't necessarily amount to anything tangible was, I mean, I just learned so much. I learned so much, and I developed a lot as a person, and I believe I just gained so many new skills, both on a business front, but also on a personality level. I think it made me more resilient. It made me a better networker. It made me a better executor. Made me a much better researcher. All those things. So that was kind of a moment for me, at least, having witnessed myself become a different person in a positive manner following that failure.
Wow.
It changed my perspective on this notion of failing. So now I don't beat myself down after failures. If anything, I try to celebrate it, because that's a requirement to develop XYZ trait in personality. It's like in Sims. If you're trying to design this new person and you want to add, let's say, patient as a trait, that person, to have that trait, patient, will have had to deal through a lot of, impatient.
To get there.
Exactly, to get there. Or someone that has resilience, grit, would have had to put in a lot of work and something that he may not have succeeded in. So all these positive traits that we have are all a result of tough circumstances.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually such a good example of having that growth mindset, because if you had a fixed mindset, you would have said, I wasted this much time. I wasted a year and a half of my time for nothing to show for it, etc. But by having the growth mindset, you're saying, I learned this and this and this, and I'm actually a much better person. I'm a better businessman, all because of that year and a half of growth which you had.
No, definitely. I mean, to be very honest, at the very beginning of the process of us not deciding to, my business partners and I deciding not to pursue that project, at that moment of time, I felt like this year and a half was a waste, and I felt really upset. But thankfully, I myself noticed the changes in myself, and that led me to have this positive perception on the idea of failure.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense. Of course, it's normal to feel upset, that's also a normal emotion for us to have. But what's important is that, you can grieve the project, be upset, feel that emotion, and then be able to move past it.
Definitely. How do you set goals that actually lead to success? Or how do you advise your solopreneurs to set goals?
Yeah, so I would say goal setting is really, really important. I do it for myself at the beginning of every month, and then I check in at the end of every month how I did on my goals. And I would say it's important to set them in categories. So, it can be, if you're doing, overall goals for yourself, they could be health, career, relationships, family. So you could put, split them into the categories which are important to you. And then for each goal, it needs to be a SMART goal. Have you heard of this, a SMART goal before?
No.
Okay, so a SMART goal needs to be specific, measurable. You've heard this?
Yeah. I think when I was quite young.
I think I learned it in school first, and I was like, oh, this is boring. And then here I am preaching it, because it's actually, I use it all the time. Specific, measurable, relevant. Specific, measurable, attainable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So basically, just to give an example, like instead of saying I want to be healthy by the end of the month, it needs to be a lot more specific. So I want to lose 2 kilos by March 31, for example. So that way you're so much more specific. So then you can actually create a goal that you can achieve, and you can see, did I do it or did I not do it? So for every goal you set, it needs to be SMART. And this is something I make sure with all my clients as well.
And what made you get into life coaching? Because your previous job, you were working a corporate job.
Yeah. So I was working in data analytics consulting, and I was like coding behind the screen. And at one point, like I had this moment where I was really bored. In the beginning, I liked it because I was learning a lot. And then I felt really bored, and I felt like what I was doing, I could teach anyone else to do. Like I could be a robot doing this. And I was like, that seems like something's missing in my life. Like, why am I doing something that anyone can do? So I was like, okay, I want to find something that is unique to me and that brings out my specific personality and skill set and interests. And I also wanted to design a job or a career around a life I wanted. So I didn't want to have to go to an office. I didn't want to have a boss, like, and I wanted to be able to be remote. I can work from wherever I want. So by looking into my skills, my passions, and it took a long time, I found life coaching. And as soon as I found it, I decided to invest in a program to see if I liked it. And then since then, it was like a no-brainer. I really, really enjoyed it. And so I did both for a while until I could go fully into coaching.
Do you ever see yourself going back to corporate?
No. No, definitely not. And actually, that's why my main, purpose now is helping people start and launch their business, because I believe that anyone is capable. And especially now, the freelance economy is growing. No one wants to be tied down in a corporate job. And I really want to help people who are in the position I was in a few years ago, where you feel stuck. You feel like, is this what life is about? Counting your vacation days, right? So now I'm really invested in helping people find what they love and pursue it.
I would just want to touch on the topic of mental health. Is there any correlation of the state of mental health that your customers or people who want to have life coaching, mindset coaching, are they usually in a bad state of mental health, a positive state of mental health?
Yeah, so I would say, like, as a coach, we're trained, if someone is in a bad state of mental health, we're trained to send them to a therapist, because that's what you need to go from a bad state to a neutral state or a positive state. But anyone who comes to me is on this verge of like motivation. Like, you only go to a coach when you're ready, and just using the gym, because it's the most common example, you get a gym coach or a trainer when you're ready to start working out. So everyone has that motivation. And so it's my responsibility to make sure I keep on that motivation and keep helping them build momentum, because any success will only come from momentum. So it's my job to keep boosting the motivation and the momentum to see real tangible growth. And like, anytime I work with clients, like, the way we measure results is through tangible growth.
Can you give examples?
Yeah. So for example, if a freelancer comes to me who's, recently started, not making that much money, we set financial goals. So how much do you want to make in a month? And usually what I found is most people are undercharging for their services because they feel like imposters and they feel like they're not good enough. So most of my clients who come to me, we immediately first change their pricing structure and change their offers, because they're not charging for their worth. And then we set revenue goals based on what they can achieve within 3 months working together. And then we track our progress.
I myself am very much aware of how real the mindset and business and life coaching is. I've had a few friends of mine who are actually clients of yours that swear by your process and methodology. And we can see it, as you said, like, tangibly in their results, whether it's to do with their personal life, them wanting to optimize on various things, or in work life. What would you say, though, to people that doubt the legitimacy of life coaching?
Honestly, I won't say anything to them. I think they're just going to fall behind at some point, because coaching is really for anyone in this day and age. Like, it's 2025, there's so much information out there. There's so much potential out there. And if you're not grabbing it, if you're not trying to be the best version of yourself and not investing in it, you're going to fall behind.
That's the key point, right? You're not necessarily fixing something that's broken like therapy.
Yeah. You're
optimizing and improving. And no matter how skilled or experienced we are in life, there's always room for improvement.
Yeah, exactly. I almost think of it as like a shortcut. So, you want to start a business. Yeah, you can do it alone, but you're going to kind of be reinventing the wheel by yourself, trying to figure everything out, which will take you a long time. Or you hire a business coach who will help you achieve, what you would have done in a year in maybe 3 months. So it's an investment, but it's an investment on yourself that you will get back in your business, in your life.
Now, discipline and consistency, 2 critical elements of success for anyone in any industry.
Yeah.
Why do you see people struggle with discipline and consistency? What are the root causes, and how can we help guide people that struggle with discipline and consistency?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say there's like an underlying fear when people can't stay consistent and don't have discipline. So usually, if it's about starting a business, the underlying fear would be like, I'm not going to be successful, or it's not a good idea, or, not believing in the business. So then they can't be consistent, or it's something that they don't truly enjoy. So if you try to, start a business, maybe you go at it for a few months, and if it's not something you're passionate about, you're going to get bored because you're not going to see results straight away. So I would say there's always something underlying, especially if people are procrastinating, they're not consistent. There's an underlying fear or limiting belief that's preventing them from pursuing it.
So would your advice be the exact same for someone struggling with procrastination? I guess it's kind of the same thing, right? If you don't have discipline and no consistency, that's a result of procrastination.
So if you
or not necessarily.
Yeah. So if you don't have consistency or discipline, you're procrastinating, right, on what you're supposed to do, or you're just not doing it. And procrastination is a symptom of, of fear of failure, fear of putting yourself out there. A lot of, what I've seen, the biggest fear is social media. People are absolutely terrified of being in front of the camera, which I totally understand. It's a huge hurdle to overcome. But that's something I tell people right off the bat. You're going to have to be out there. You're going to have to put your face on there. So get ready.
And any productivity hacks that you'd like to share for people to maximize their productivity?
So I would say, I think this comes to decision making. So we make around 30,000 decisions a day, and each one requires mental power, right? So what I've found is the best thing to do is to try to minimize the amount of decisions you're making a day in order to use more energy on bigger decisions you need to make. So you know how, Steve Jobs wore the same thing every single day.
Well, that's literally me. 9 out of 10 days I go out, black t-shirt, black trousers, black shoes, the same one, 10 trousers, 10 shirts.
Exactly. Well, then you already have this hack. But yeah, then you don't waste time thinking, what should I wear? Because that's a lot of decision making. What shirt, what pant, what shoe, etc. That requires energy.
Why does that additional decision making that you do create fatigue? Because in theory, it's a simple decision, right? It's just what you're wearing.
Yeah, but think about it. If you're making 30,000 decisions a day, no matter how little each one is, it's still 30,000. So the less you
consumes.
Yeah, it consumes brain power. So the less you have, the easier or the more energy you'll have to make the bigger decisions. And also on that note, I would say any big decisions, do them in the morning, because you haven't had those 30,000 decisions in the day yet. So in the morning, you're a lot more focused and energized. So you'll be able to make strategic decisions then.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I myself am definitely a lot more, when I prioritize my tasks for the day, I make sure that I have the big tasks or the tasks I really don't want to do
first.
First.
Oh, that's a good one.
When they end up being, late afternoon, it somehow can make its way to be added on to the next day.
Yeah, I heard about that one. I think it has a funny name, like eat the big frog first or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, have you heard that?
No.
Okay,
no.
I think that is a strategy to do the hardest tasks first.
Yeah.
We'll need to find the name of that.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, and I would say also to minimize decision making, that's when routines and habits come in. So if you're able to get into a specific routine every day, or of whether it's exercising or when you eat or what you eat, if you can make those routines and habits that you don't have to decide every single day, that will also give you a lot more energy.
Do you see any common traits amongst high performers?
I would say yes. First, it's mindset.
Yeah.
Really being visionaries and really seeing that, the potential of what they're doing and having a long-term focus. So people, I would say, who are really high performers see 5 years, 10 years down the line. They're not just looking this year and next year.
Clear. And what separates the winners from the losers? Is it just that, what you've explained, or is there more to it?
I would say what separates winners from losers is investing. So winners are the ones who are investing in themselves, investing in their business, investing in support, investing in mentorship, because they're going at it with a, no bullshit mentality. I'm going for this, I'm investing in it, I believe in it. And that kind of will show by investing in all the support, there's no doubt that they will be successful. The losers have a scarcity mindset. They're half in, half out at all times. So I find that when someone invests, that's when they become a winner automatically.
Do you ever have in your personal life, switching away from your interactions with your clients, are you ever like speaking to a friend, talking about life, situation, friends discuss problems with one another, and without realizing, like, switch on your life coach cap?
Oh my God. It actually is kind of exhausting because you're like, I always want to help, right? And I know how to coach. And the difference is, like, when I coach is I don't really give answers. I kind of help them get their answer. But when you're with friends and you're talking, you kind of share opinions and advice and stuff. So I've tried to at least a little bit stop my opinion and advice and, a little bit coach. But I also, decided that, like, I don't want to be constantly coaching all the time because it requires a lot of energy and brain power. So
why have you become that go-to friend that people
call? I mean, I've always been that person. And that's kind of how I ended up as a coach.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I might as well get paid for it.
Yeah. I've always been the person, people come to for advice, and I would always help and support and that kind of thing. So that's kind of how I ended up as a coach. And now, I'll help my friends, of course, here and there, but to a certain extent, and then they have to pay me.
There you go. Well, Mira, thank you very much for hopping on Truth Central. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you so
Mira,
much for having me.
And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.